whatever. Let's just jump over to the Celtics side of things. We've given up on the NBA now. So Gordon Hayward's a good basketball player. If he joins the Celtics, which probably will be at a little bit of a cut rate, but probably not enough of a cut rate that it would really make a difference financially. I guess the first question is, assuming this Cleveland team stays in place and is relatively the same next year, performance-wise, what we just saw, do you think just drafting Fultz and signing Hayward makes the Celtics good enough to compete with them next year and have a chance to get to the finals?
Compete, yes. I would not pick them to win, even though there are other factors that... Well, first, I mean, it's like we got to look at who exactly the Celtics have to give up to clear max space, because if it's Avery Bradley, that's a big... I mean, he was a huge player for them.
Let's say it's just Terry Rozier, because that was a math that I had that I also seen from Ryan Bernardoni at Celtics Hub earlier, although I think he did correct his math. But let's say it's basically just Rozier, Demetrius Jackson, Jordan McGee, dashing out Busele.
Also, the cap, also we should say, we don't know what the salary cap is going to be.
It could go up $1 million or $2 million, which would save.
It will more likely go down because this is going to be a sweep. So if we look at last year's projections were $89 million. It ended at 94.1, and a big part of that was, not all of it, but a part of that was the fact that the finals went 7. We had the Western Conference Finals and the Eastern Conference Finals go 6, and that really ups the revenue for the league. So I think it will go down, unfortunately, which could make, we don't know yet, could mean that Bradley is expendable or Smart, and that's tricky. But to get back to like the fundamental issue here, I think the Celtics will be better, obviously, with Hayward, even if they have to give up Bradley. With Fultz, I think Jaylen Brown will take another step. He'll improve. If they have Marcus Smart, I think he'll improve a little bit. I'm still stubbornly optimistic about his shooting. I'm not optimistic about his explosion around the rim, which is really disappointing and troublesome. But I don't know if you can beat Cleveland. We'll see if maybe this is finally the year where all these minutes LeBron has played catches up to him. He'll be 33 years old.
He kind of admitted that it did after Game 3 to Shams Charania at the vertical, saying that he was exhausted.
Yeah, it's not rocket science.
Yeah.
Played 46 minutes and was a +7.
It's not the same as last year.
No, it's completely different. So I think they can be competitive. I think they would be clearly, they just had the 1 seed, but they were the second best team in the conference.
They were a 53-win team.
I think they're clearly better than the Wizards and the Raptors. The Raptors have their own questions. If they bring everybody back, I still think that the Celtics would kind of separate themselves a little bit from those two teams if they get Hayward. But bottom line is, it doesn't matter. These are no-brainer decisions. You do them if you can.
Okay. So you have no concerns about basically committing your long-term, or at least your 3 to 4 year window, to a team that you're not confident could even get to the NBA Finals?
Well, I mean, a lot can happen. A lot could happen over the next 3 years. Just because you're signing Hayward doesn't necessarily mean you're locking yourself in anything. You have Isaiah Thomas's free agency. We don't know what's going to happen there. We have LeBron James' free agency, which we could talk about a little bit more if you want to. We don't know what's happening there. If LeBron James goes to the Western Conference, all of a sudden the Boston Celtics are the clear favorite to get to the NBA Finals. Mm-hmm. Once you're in the NBA Finals, anything can happen. So, no, I mean, you still want to... they're not really sacrificing anything by signing Hayward and by drafting Fultz. These are gifts. So...
oh, no, a Porsche and a Ferrari?
So, I don't see the downside in doing that. And same goes for Blake Griffin. And I wish This free agency class had a few more fish, but it's basically those two are the guys that they can target.
Okay, so I totally agree with you on all those points, which is unfortunate for our viewers. But Blake Griffin, I think, is one where we might have some disagreement. So I'm in the camp of being perpetually mortified by Blake Griffin's injury history, and there's a lot of fellow non-doctor reporters and analysts will throw out varying theories of it's not like don't worry about his injuries because it's not like a repetitive injury to the same thing. And then the other side is the frequency of injuries, regardless of the cause, is indicative of whatever it is, whether it's a musculoskeletal, whatever the way to say that is, issue, or the way he plays, or the way he carries himself, whatever it is. There's a clear track record, no matter how many people in his entourage that he tries to beat the shit out of in Toronto. There is a track record of Blake Griffin not being able to play in the playoffs due to injury, and generally not playing more than 65 games. Him turning 29 this year, 28 or 29, forget which one. I think he's 28 now, right?
He's 28. He just turned 28.
Okay, so entering into age 28, where he's now in his prime. Prime is generally 27 to 30, and he's a player that I don't know if I would say that he has necessarily lost athleticism, or that I feel like he...
No, you can say he's lost athleticism.
So he's lost athleticism, and that I don't know, because I don't watch him, you probably watch him more than I do, I don't know if that is a matter of that he just hasn't been fresh off of injury long enough for him to really get everything back, or if he just generally doesn't have the same bounce that he had earlier in his career. Most of these guys start to lose their bounce around 28 or 29. The great players are able to reinvent their games in order to accommodate for that. I think he has done a really good job at that, but there's still some limitations that I see out on the perimeter that make me worried that once he hits age 29 and age 30, that his productivity level is going to go down. He's going to struggle to find his own shot, is going to struggle to be the playmaker that he is right now. And then, of course, if he's only playing 65 games a year, then that makes it even more of a concern. So the point of what I'm saying is I worry about committing a 4-year deal to Blake Griffin. I'd be pretty comfortable committing a 3-year max with a team option at the end, or a non-guarantee at the end. I'm pretty sure Blake Griffin has enough leverage in the market that he doesn't have to settle for that. Danny Ainge has done a pretty damn good job so far of being able to get favorable contracts for the team.
Okay, so would you rather have Blake Griffin 4-year max, player option on the 4th year, or have nobody? I shouldn't say nobody. Would you rather use your cap space to sign JaMychal Green?
No, I'd rather sign Griffin, because Green's going to get a 3-year 16, maybe 12 to 15 in that range.
Let's say hypothetically.
Okay. So I'm committing another good role player to go from Green to Griffin.
I'm using Green as an example where hypothetically
well, they should sign JaMychal Green if they don't sign anyone else. So, yeah.
Right. No. Yeah. But I'm using I should say some player who you can stack the money, short-term deal, so you retain as much of your flexibility as possible, and someone who's serviceable, not great, like JaMychal Green. I know that he'll get most likely get a long-term deal this summer. But what would you rather have? What is the difference here for you? Would you rather have Griffin on the 4 years, or would you rather have player X / JaMychal Green for 1 year and try to win the championship with that?
That's a good question. I'm trying to think who. I don't think there's anyone coming up in 2019 that I think would be realistically attainable off the top of my head, besides Kevin Durant, of course. Just kidding. That.
You mean 2018?
Yeah, I'm sorry, 2018, 19, whatever. But yeah, I don't think there's anyone coming up that, because 4 years, assuming Griffin plays in those 4 years, they just signed Horford, who they know could start tailing off after the second year of his contract based on his age. So they were pretty happy to do that with him. Doing that with Griffin, I don't think is that different of a proposition. So I think at the end of the day, I'm fine giving a 4-year max to Blake Griffin, but I'd like to try to maneuver out of the fully maxed out top of the market contract if you can. But I don't see it as, if you can't get Hayward, then Griffin is obviously clearly an even consolation there. I don't think there's any risk with signing Gordon Hayward. He is pure upside, pure flexibility, pure, you can fit in your system however you want to do it. If you put Blake Griffin and Al Horford together, I think there's a lot of, I don't know if there's much offensive concern, but defensive concern. I think there's a lot of, I'm not sure how Blake Griffin will play defensively without DeAndre Jordan behind him.
Yeah, I think that, well, first of all, like, how much better of a defender is DeAndre Jordan, not talking defensive rebounding, how much better of a defender is DeAndre Jordan from Al Horford? I would say it's marginal, to be honest with you.
I think it's that they're totally different defenders.
They play
in different parts of, like,
right.
Griffin's flexibility and screwing up on switches and zoning up on the PNR is usually covered up by the fact that DeAndre is behind him to cover it up, while this Celtics defense is completely different.
Right, but I'm also looking at it as more of how would they match up, because if you're making this decision, all you need to worry about is less will we be better and can we win a championship. So who are we matching up with? We are matching up with the Cavaliers. When they go small, do you have the foot speed on the perimeter to make these switches? And, I mean, I personally think that Griffin has made strides defensively, especially in space. He's gotten smarter. He's already really good on the ball. If you like, he can switch ball screens, and that's very easy to like pay attention to. He can do that. Stay in front of his man. Does a pretty good job with that. So I'm not really too worried there. I also think offensively, we talked a little bit earlier about his struggles regarding athleticism and the decline there. I'm not really that worried about it just because, you know, he's made quiet improvements with his jump shot. He's attempting more and more threes. I think we'll see in Brad Stevens' system, we'll see more threes out of him. We'll see, you know...
He'll be doubling the amount of threes he's taking.
And just playing in a different offense where it's a little bit more egalitarian without a Chris Paul. It's a lot more moving off the ball. It's a lot more, you know, the usage of his teammates will be higher as opposed to being dependent to be that second or first fiddle with Paul. So I think that lessens the pressure a little bit on him, especially as we go forward. As Fultz improves and becomes a reliable ball handler. Like, I'm not really I just think these are no-brainers because if you don't get a player like Griffin now, you don't really you won't have cap space and you won't have the option later. Like, sure, he could suffer an injury that makes that an anchor, makes that contract an anchor. But that's like what this is. If you're this close to winning the championship or getting to the finals, you do it.
I hate agreeing with people on here. It's no fun. You know, like, okay, as far as the injury thing, if he whoever he's signing with, assuming he's a free, I can't remember if he's opted yet.
He has a player option, but he's gonna opt out.
So he's gonna, yeah. So when it's official, they're gonna do an exhaustive physical with him. I think they're gonna have pretty clear medical confidence when they ink him to that contract. So I'm pretty sure if a team is signing him, they're gonna have confidence that he's going to play out the life of that contract to the best of the ability that they can be confident in that, obviously.
And also, you know, if it doesn't work out based on performance, trading Blake Griffin with a year left on his deal or 2 years, 1 year in a player option, like, that's not hard, even if it's a max. Yeah. So, I mean, I think people forget a lot about, like, how like trades work and how you can just trade guys that aren't working out. I know it's not ideal, but it is possible, and he would have value somewhere for, you know, the fact that he is a name brand. So I don't really think moving off that contract, if worst came to worst, would be that much of an issue.
Well, Orlando will always exist.
That's true.
Yeah. So I'm trying to think, is there anything else? I guess the only other question I would have, I feel like Hayward, we don't even need to break down how he could be utilized, but for Griffin, in the Celtics offense, you kind of touched on how it could change. Do you think they would use him similar to how they use Horford right now? Where he's kind of like, he's like the quaffle out there, I would say. He's just out there making contact, running off the ball screens. They're setting up flares for him to get 3-point looks, and then he can obviously dribble off of that if he wants to be a playmaker.
Yeah, I think you'll see maybe them use him actually a little bit how they use Kelly Olynyk, to be honest. And then also, so he'll be, you know, as he's been used now, he'll be a guy who can pick and pop, a guy who can roll, a guy who can run pick and rolls, which is very like that's a rare weapon that you can utilize him with, where Isaiah or Fultz or Jalen sets the screen, and then you or Horford, which is a 4-5 with them, would be very
awesome.
scary either way. So there's that. I still think that he's one of the better post scorers in the league, and they would drop the ball down to him. Split cut action off of that would be really interesting.
Use him the way they use Marcus even right now.
Sure, yeah. Someone who can draw doubles, draw the defense's attention. You know, Brad Stevens says all the time that the number one priority of his offensive schemes is to get a layup. Blake Griffin's really good when his back's to the basket or when he's facing up from 10 feet at getting layups. That's something he's really still good at. So, yeah, they'd use him in those ways. They'd give him the freedom, I think, even more than he's had in Los Angeles to grab a defensive rebound and go right away. I don't think there would be any hesitation where there is now, where it's like, okay, we got to set up the half court action, we got an outlet to Chris Paul.
Chris eats his ball.
So there's not Isaiah Thomas isn't that type of player. So that's a huge advantage, I think. His ability to attack backpedaling defenses would only make him even more efficient and make the Celtics that much harder to guard. So there are injury related concerns for sure, but I personally don't see a downside, and they should be thrilled if they could get him.
All right, well, the road to Banner 18 continues through Blake Griffin. That'll be interesting. Anyone else that you think could be on the market besides, I mean, Michael Green, I think would be a great filler for Amir Johnson, but we don't really need to dive into that. Is there anyone else that you think would be substantial on the market that you could see them using their cap space on if they can't get Hayward or Griffin?
That is a really good question.
I'll delay while you Google the list so that because it is a tricky one off the top of my head. I'll just throw out Gallinari's name out there if Gallinari's available.
Sure, I think he's going to be... I think his market will probably make it so that doesn't make too much sense for the Celtics. But
you see him in the mid to high 20s?
Potentially. I mean, that's another guy who has injury concerns.
Same concerns as Griffin, yeah.
And he's a worse defender than Blake Griffin. In my opinion, he's just basically like, I don't know how hot takey I want to get here, but like he's just kind of a rich man's version of Olynyk. I don't know.
Is there any signature over there?
So, yeah, I don't know there.
See, I think of him more of like a taller Hayward than a rich man's. Well, I guess I could see how. Yeah, whatever. It's all the same thing.
Yeah. I guess there's your PJ Tuckers of the world. You can always have another 3-and-D guy if they, in this scenario, they don't have Hayward, you're saying? Yeah. Adding wing depth, that's just key. See what Kyle Korver's ability, see if someone like Rudy Gay is willing to come over for like less money. I had a thing earlier I wrote about Andre Iguodala would be perfect for the Celtics. They could probably pay more. See, the thing about the Warriors is, sure, they can retain Iguodala legally if
he wants to be retained at his price.
Well, right. So, does the team? How much money is the team willing to spend, and how much are they willing to say? Listen, great, but a 3-year deal for you, or maybe even longer than that. When we got these other guys coming up pretty soon. Klay Thompson's coming up pretty soon. He's going to get a max. Our luxury tax payment is going to just be through the roof. I know they're going to be printing money in Golden State for a while with the new stadium, but I don't know. In that Woj column, I don't know if you read it. It was really interesting, just because In my opinion, it kind of looked like they were, I don't know, I wouldn't say that they were throwing Iguodala under the bus, but Woj was very blasé about Durant's willingness last summer to take less money to go to Golden State, and all they would have to do is trade Iguodala's salary, assuming that the cap did not spike. And it's like all they had to do was 2015 Finals MVP and a huge defensive presence in the series against the Cavaliers. Like, he's huge for them. He's a big part of their identity. So
it's like saying all I have to do to get these shoes to fit is to cut off my pinky toe.
Right, sure. So like, I don't think that was an open shut case there. That would have been a very big deal. That could have even reduced the desirability of going to Golden State without a player like Iguodala to guard LeBron, so that Durant doesn't have to for 40 minutes. So
which Durant proved he probably can pull off anyway.
Potentially, yeah, he's been terrific.
He's your Finals MVP, I assume.
Yes.
I thought we could debate it, but I'm like, nah.
It's either him or well, okay.
Curry would win in most years the way he's performing, but I mean Durant's been.
It's either Durant, Curry, or LeBron. And LeBron's not going to win.
No, LeBron, yeah. This isn't 2015.
No, I think he's been outplayed by Durant, to be honest.
Durant and Curry both clearly. In 2015, there was nobody that clearly was standing out, so it made sense for LeBron. But, like, Durant has been godly. And Curry's been sitting on that cloud right next to him. I mean, this has been insane. But, yeah, okay, so there's dispensability. Iguodala, also, he's aging quickly. I mean, it was... No one seemed to talk about it coming into the series, or I feel like most people weren't talking about all the previous stuff, that like Iguodala was hurt in that Spurs series, and it wasn't clear how healthy he was going to be for the finals. And I think he's been tremendous. Tremendous, too strong a word. He's been really good. He's been exactly what they needed out of him.
He's been terrific.
He's done everything defensively for them. He's been really good in transition. I mean, I know he's missed a lot of good three looks, stuff like that, but I think overall he's been pretty much everything that they wanted, that they could have wanted out of him.
No, I mean, you're going to leave him open. That's your defensive strategy against this team. But, no, he's been great. His defense has been terrific. Like, LeBron hasn't really wanted or been interested in posting him up at all in this series. We all know about him slapping away that corner three that could have made Game 3 a lot more interesting at the end there. He's just a really, really good player. And he's been, he's flashed the athleticism, too. He's gotten up for some really impressive dunks in transition. So, yeah, he's been great.
Yeah, he's one of those aging athletes where he just has to save it for a few times a game where he really needs it.
Right, and he comes off the bench, he doesn't need to play heavy minutes, doesn't need to cross the 35-minute barrier. Like, he's in a great situation, so
he's better than your favorite player, Patrick McCaw, is what you're saying.
He's a little bit better than Patrick McCaw, yeah.
So, is there anything else you want to hit on in either of these subjects before we wrap it up here? And I have one more question for you before we do.
No, I'm good.
Okay, so I want to give out an award here.
Okay.
And I don't believe in doing just regular season awards. I find it ironic that the NBA is now putting out their awards after the finals, but they're still just regular season awards. So I always, at the end after the finals, like to do a full season award where you're rewarding for playoff performance and regular season performance, because there's this weird habit we get into in American sports where we have the playoffs, but all of our awards and all of our stats are all just regular season stats, and we just don't really talk much about what happens in the playoffs except for who wins the finals. So who would be your MVP for the NBA when you factor in the entire playoffs and regular season combined?
LeBron James.
Okay. Agreed. Yeah. Would it be... So I agree it'd be LeBron. Would Kevin Durant be number 2 for you?
I still think he's missed some time. I would probably say Kawhi would be number 2. I mean, they're up 25 points. He sprains his ankle. They lose and they get swept. Yeah. And it wasn't competitive.
You didn't get a chance to really.
And we'll never know how competitive it could have been had he been healthy. I mean, he's a monster. So yeah, I'd probably put him number 2. James Harden's last game of the year, really, if we had that factored in, I mean, that would not be fair to him.
You can't wait. I mean, it gets more weight because it's that game, but you can't let it taint everything else he was doing.
No, it doesn't taint everything, but it does matter. Like, we can't. It's a home game 6 to go to the conference final. Like, it just matters to play that bad. So he would probably be 3 for me, and we should mention, and I mean,
have to.
It's all, it's all. We're splitting hairs here. My 4th would probably be, actually my 4th. That's really interesting. I would either have Curry or Isaiah Thomas if we're factoring in the playoffs.
Wow.
I don't know.
Do you want me to take your goggles off for you? Or?
No, I mean, I don't know how you don't look at what he did in the playoffs and look at how the success of the team, look at...
Yeah, we talk about the on-off value kind of thing.
No, but also...
Viewing theory game 3 aside, I can totally see the argument there. But you haven't said Durant yet, which is what's shocking to me.
Well, okay, I'm sorry. Durant's interesting because... so he missed 2 games in the playoffs with a calf injury or something against the Blazers. Warriors won those games by a combined 35 points. He missed 20-something games during the regular season. They rolled. He's phenomenal, but if we're using the word value here, I don't think it's his choice. He'll win a title. He'll win a Finals MVP. He's doing all the right things. But his value, like the Warriors can still win a title without Kevin Durant. So as wonderful as he is, and the fact that he could be the best player in the world as early as next season, I think, if we're basing your award on this season strictly and these playoffs, they haven't really needed him. So I would just say because of Curry's the time that he's actually been available, I would say he's been more valuable, and the on-off numbers really factor that in. I have one more stat for you off the top of my head. In the playoffs, when Durant has been on the floor without Curry, the Warriors have been outscored by 6.7 points per 100 possessions. So that number is probably wrong because I use it off the top of my head. But it's around there, and that's an absurd statistic because you would assume that the Warriors, with how they've dominated, would continue to dominate even without Curry on the floor. They had Durant, and they haven't. So it's very interesting.
All right, as you can tell, there was some technical difficulty, but whatever, we're going to wrap it up here. So for this wonderful guy over here, Michael V. Pina on Twitter, you can read all of his amazing content at Weiss Sports, including a new piece that just dropped Friday morning, including some quotes from Danny Ainge. Everything Danny Ainge says is gold and moves the market like the Fed chairman, so I'm sure whatever is in that piece is going to change our lives as we know it. You can find me at Jared Weiss, MBA on Twitter and Instagram. I am over at CLNS Media Network and Celtics blog. And you can find this podcast on iTunes, Stitcher, wherever else you can find podcasts via CLNS Media Network. And of course, we're putting a webcam version of this up on the CLNS YouTube channel. So go there and subscribe. You can find the Garden Report postgame show. We'll have another Garden Report coming for the draft, which is only a few weeks away. And enjoy Game 4 of the finals tonight. Please like, subscribe, all that other stuff, blah, blah, blah. It actually helps us. So thank you, and we'll see you next time on the Garden Report.